Hey pigs, how you doing? I've selected specific dates and times for the month of February based on advanced traditional astrology techniques. These dates are astrologically auspicious, meaning they're especially powerful for crafting talismans or conducting rituals. I will use these elections myself. These are some of my personal ones. The idea is to harness the unique energy of these moments as determined by the positions and movements of the celestial bodies above. You can use these elections to create talismans that carry these special signatures to carry forward with you for ongoing benefits, or for conducting special rituals that draw upon this unique configuration of these alignments for a singular purpose. This practice is deeply rooted in historical astrological techniques and traditions and is a meaningful way to connect with the rhythms of the universe and to take them in regularly. As Marsilio Ficino says, it is our duty to take great consideration to align ourselves and our souls with these fortuitous elections, these fortuitous configurations, to improve our lives and sustain the love and pleasure that has created us. All right, let's dive in. This first election is a Mars election, with Mars nearing his degree of exaltation right on the ascendant. The moon is conjunct the fixed star of Vega, and Agrippa says when we make images or talismans with Vega, Cornelius Agrippa says the effects of a Vega talisman are to make a man magnanimous and proud, and it giveth power over devils and beasts. So in this sense, we are definitely taking advantage of that Mars election. Mars is all about protection, personal power, and especially in Capricorn, tenacity and strength. The moon is enclosed by the benefics here, which is really awesome. You get that moon separating from a trine with Jupiter and applying to a conjunction with Venus. Venus is also supporting this election, helping Mars in his endeavors, providing that nighttime benefic of the night support. Venus, the benefic of the night sect, is also very strong in this chart, helping to bonify Mars, to help ameliorate and move forward with the agenda in a way that allows consensus, allows mutual support, and admiration as well. We love that. We love the Venus and Mars combo. This is a waning moon election, which is really good for letting go, emptying the cup, getting rid of disputations and loans, doing exactly what we said and returning the favor. The waning moon also lends to support Mars because Mars can sometimes run a little bit hot. That waning moon adds a little bit of tenacity. The Picatrix, an astrological magic grimoire, which I highly recommend you read, talks about how the waning moon is best for Mars talismans. So this is really good. We got everything syncing up. Mars is ready to act. He's nearing his degree of exaltation. We got that waning moon, which really supports that Mars, allowing things to, allowing more of a chopping wood, getting things done instead of where are we going with this, not really seeing the direction, but seeing a way forward and a way to act concisely. Some keywords I've written down for this election are martial success, clarity, achievement, exercising with power towards a definitive goal, heating up and down for the long haul. So Mars in his exaltation is a very auspicious time to create a Mars talisman. I really like Mars talismans, and I hope that you select this one. Hope you pick one up. I'm going to be making some Mars talismans for this election, so pretty excited about this one. Mars in Capricorn is a great transit. I really love this time where you're driving forward. There's a pinch to kind of get ahead. There's inspiration to move forward. Mars is raised up in his exaltation, a signification that is associated with the planet being able to rise above its normal station in life. So this is definitely an opportunity to take advantage of. Now, what is Mars? What is the planet Mars, especially if we're engaging with martial magic well. Sometimes we need a little bit of courage. Sometimes we need a little bit of confidence. Sometimes we need that everyday power to move forward. And in Capricorn, Mars is using his strength, his knowledge of the battlefield, the wisdom of history to really educate him and allow him to not just do things willy-nilly, not to just shoot from the hip all the time, but to enact change and move towards a goal constructively. Mars is really good here to keep things going, to not give up, to hold on. Saturn magic is actually really auspicious for farmers because farming is a difficult process. You have to wait a long time. You have to diligently be dedicated to what you're doing. You have to be very consistent about it. And here, that answers a lot of the difficulties for Mars. Mars struggles sometimes, especially in Aries or Scorpio, to see the end goal, to really know what that looks like. And here, Mars is being raised up to not only see that goal, but to move forward towards it, to not give up, to say, this is exactly what I need to do, this is where I'm going, and this is how I'm going to get it. So this is something really good to take advantage of, a very auspicious configuration. Yeah, I really like this election. Now, wherever you are, it's important to look at your location, especially what is possible for you to elect where you are. So, if you're in North America, you're probably going to be able to get this depending where you are. Otherwise, try to get the moon as close to Vega as you can, or just as close to that Capricorn, just as close to that Mars in Capricorn, really. That's the goal here. Another thing to note with this election, it is a nighttime election, which strengthens Mars, supports Mars. Mars is the malefic of the night sect, so he operates a lot better during those elections. The main goals with this election is to make sure that Mars is on the ascendant in the first house. We don't really want Mars on the midheaven because that would place Mars in a day chart. So definitely work with this election with Mars on the ascendant. Try to get that where you are. All right, let's continue talking about the magical elections for the month of February. So this one I really like. This one highlights Mercury on the midheaven in Aquarius and dignified by term. So the moon is directly applying to that conjunction with Mercury. Really like to see that. Mercury is doing pretty well in Aquarius. I think Mercury has a lot of correspondences with the sign of Aquarius, being fair, being rooted to ideals, understanding both sides of the spectrum, and being willing to integrate oneself to a more idealistic way in order to solve a lot of those mercurial pursuits. So this election, let's talk about it. Now, it would be better to get a Cancer rising for this election, specifically because Saturn is right there in Pisces in the 10th whole sign house, making a direct square and applying square to that ascendant degree. Now, that's something that you want to avoid. Avoid that. So, yeah, for this, it's a lot better to have the ascendant in, Taurus, not Cancer. Got a little bit wishful with that. Wishful thinking. Yeah, so in Taurus, late degrees of Taurus, that would be a lot better. It's going to be able to highlight Mercury's significations a lot better, not be impeded, the first house, by Saturn. So, yeah, this is a good election. You have Venus in Capricorn, so if this was a Taurus rising, Venus would be placed in the ninth house, which is pretty good for Venus. Venus isn't directly necessary for this election, so she's just kind of holding the boundary for us to allow us to facilitate this election. She's also in Saturn's sign, which corresponds a little bit with Mercury. Mercury's also in Saturn's other sign of Aquarius. So yeah, and as well as this, what's really important to highlight is we also have an applying square from Mercury to Jupiter. So Mercury is able to, the Mercury of intellect, the intellect of Mercury is able to talk and communicate with the God intellect, figure out ideas, rein himself a little bit more, have a little bit more time to articulate that. And this is an election that's really associated with ideals, out of the box thinking. Mercury wants to reach for the sky and carry the water of the water bearer to achieve a higher purpose for all. And learning, this is good for learning, studying, especially with that Jupiter application, learning something, getting involved with a teacher, achieving a relationship with the world outside of us to facilitate that learning. So yeah, this is a pretty good election for Mercury if you're interested in kind of picking up a Mercury election, a Mercury talisman that is off the beaten path than your normal one. And I like to do that. I think that's a little bit fun. You know, so I have some Mercury and Virgo talismans, Mercury and Gemini. They're really great. And it's a little bit fun to branch out, especially when Mercury is dignified by turn, as well as this configuration where I'm able to get the hour of Mercury as well, which is pretty likely perhaps where you are, especially if you're in North America. But yeah, this is a pretty good election. Pretty good election for Mercury in Aquarius. All right, so the next election is a 28th mansion of the moon, a lunar talisman. So we also have Cancer rising on the ascendant, very perfect. There are no malefics other than that Mars aspecting the ascendant degree. And in this case, I'm a little bit more willing to work with that, especially because Mars is exalted and Venus is right there bonifying Mars, as well as this being in the moon being in between the benefics, enclosed by the benefics. The moon is separating from that sextile with Jupiter, really good also, getting that added support from Jupiter. Jupiter rules Pisces. And on top of that, Venus, the moon is applying directly to Venus. So I like this election. That Mars is maybe something to watch out for, but I'm not too concerned about it. If you are a little bit worried about this, I do recommend just doing a more medium, a semi-permanent talisman, like a paper talisman, or even something else that's a little bit more easier to work with if you're just getting into that. But as much as we get into these things, as much as we make talismans, sometimes it can be just good to create a paper talisman. So never underestimate that power of just a paper talisman. A paper talisman can be very potent, especially if we're willing to kind of go to the length of maybe kind of doing some scrapbooking with that, kind of creating a really nice talisman. I don't have a Cricut machine, but as soon as I get one, I'm going to make those kind of paper talismans, those kind of really crafty paper talismans. So pretty good opportunity for that. Now let's talk a little bit about the 28th mansion of the moon. So the 28th mansion of the moon I've used quite a bit. Really functional, really good for money wealth, for money generation. I actually have a 28th mansion of the moon lamp, and it's very good if you're needing to put a lure out to maybe catch more business. Maybe if you're trying to get approved for some. I've used it in the past to help me get approved for unemployment. Very good. The idea of this mansion is it's kind of collecting fishes together. The name of it is Al Baten Al Hut. And so you're collecting these fishes together and then you're throwing your lure out. And you're able to get a lot more because the attraction of all those fishes gathering to one place can allow you to get a lot more fruit, get a lot more out of your buck, right? So really great mansion of the moon. I love Al Baten Al Hut. This is also really good for connecting to people who appreciate your work and wish to help you excel with that, with those two planets on the 7th house. It's a pretty dynamic configuration. And again, Mars on the 7th house, whole sign. Now, the ascendant isn't necessarily applying directly to that, but it is a whole sign square. We're still a little bit off from that. So that is something to consider. Now, if Mars had any less dignity, or maybe there's something else that was going on, I would kind of recommend not to do this. But we also have that sextile from Neptune, which I really like. So yeah, other than that, let's talk a little bit more about the 20th mansion of the moon. It's a very sweet mansion of the moon, kind of like fish helping to connect their culmination, realizations of potentials, cohesion and gathering together, attainment, joy, and harvesting are all keywords associated with this mansion. So, yeah, pretty good mansion of the moon. Unfortunately, this isn't a night chart. Now, if you can get your location, if you can configure this chart in a different way, get a different rising sign, that could be good as well. Taurus rising, even Leo rising, honestly, would be pretty good. Maybe even get that into a night chart. But regardless, this is a pretty good election, especially if you're looking forward to taking advantage of money opportunities and use money magic for your own good. So really good time to maybe even make a talisman, to do a ritual for money, conjuring the 28th mansion of the moon. So yeah, this is a good election for that to take advantage of. And let's hop into the next one. All right, this is a Sirius election with the moon at about 13 degrees of Cancer. Now, in this chart, sometimes with these charts, honestly, I need to get them to be a little bit more exact where they should be. Now, ideally, I should have put the midheaven at about 12 degrees of Cancer, where that fixed star is. So, yeah, wherever you are, try to align that up a little bit better. Venus is rising, the sign Libra is rising, ruled by Venus, and Venus is placed in the 4th house, conjunct that Mars. Now, this is a night chart. I'm not too particularly worried about that configuration with them. To be honest, actually, Venus and Mars kind of are intricate in relationships, in dealing with other people. So this election speaks to Sirius, the fixed star, which does help marriages, helps relationships, grants the favor of the spirits of the air and of the people. So this is election where you are interacting with that dynamic, I think, a little bit with Venus and Mars, but for the good. So maybe not the best one for a very permanent talisman. I don't recommend that. This is maybe one to make a semi-permanent talisman with, like paper, or even just doing a ritual, and finding an ability to have these two planets gel. Like, the idea is to have these two planets of love and war. Now, Mars and Venus, they do go very well together, so they can be very powerful for love magic, or for relational magic. I actually have a lot of in-depth experience with these planets in dealing with relational magic. So this can actually provide a little bit more consensus, helping people to be on a little bit more of the same page, as well as these two planets being in the 5th house of love, pleasure, enjoyment, fulfillment. Yeah. Venus is joy. So pretty good place for that. And the moon is in Cancer. So another thing with this is the moon is technically void, of course. Now, what that means, more of the modern, in more of the modern sense, because really the moon is not void as long as she is in the signs of Pisces, Sagittarius, Taurus, and Cancer, right? So she's not void. She is separating from an aspect with Jupiter, and on top of that, her next aspect will actually be an applying aspect to Venus, in opposition with Venus. So this election, really good for doing a ritual to have peace between others, to have better reconciliation between others, not just marriages, but in general, being able to sustain relationships, being able to have a little bit more cooperation with each other, right? So I like this election. Moon on the midheaven, separating from that trine, separating from that sextile to Jupiter, not too bad at all. And on top of that, the moon is not really interacting with anything here. So, there's not really too much to worry about in terms of maybe this kind of spilling over into the 11th house. So you're not too worried about that at all. Sometimes I think it can actually be a little bit better to have the emotions away from that, so that they're not kind of contained in that area, so that they're not directed to be, to to choose, to have the mind kind of be concerned about those matters necessarily. But yeah, I like the selection. All right, let's talk about this Procyon election. And if we can get a Sirius election, we're for sure going to get a Procyon election. So with this, the same rules apply. The moon is separating from a sextile with Jupiter and applying to that opposition with Venus, and especially with that, Libra rising again. So Procyon is really good for protecting yourself from the evil eye, protecting yourself from witchcraft. Really good and really strengthens the support that you have. Procyon helps you navigate the waters, helps you, get in the waters, and then help you get out and shake off that water. Really good. Sometimes, honestly, dealing with different emotions, dealing with difficult emotions, Procyon can really help you deal with that. Something I've found for myself is that Procyon kind of protects you from that mirror that you may reflect at yourself as well. Kind of the mind's eye, and kind of just allowing ourselves to be a little bit more integrated in our own vision and not trying to be our own saboteur in a way, which can sometimes be different ways that other people, may work their malefic magic against us. The idea, if you can make someone fall, sometimes there's not a lot of things that we can do to someone, but, witchcraft, not just witchcraft, but kind of curses. If a curse can be successful, if it makes that person turn on themselves, right? It's going to be a lot easier. You don't have to do as much lifting if that person's just turning on themselves. So with the moon, with Procyon, the moon conjunct Procyon, pretty good election to protect yourself from that, to kind of keep yourself guarded, to kind of clean that mirror of your own image and kind of reflect what you wish, reflect that more authentically. Really powerful talisman to work with, really powerful fixed star. Really love Procyon, the little dog. You gotta have a lot of love for the little dog. A lot of love for the little dog. Anyways, definitely like this election. Hope you enjoy this. Not a lot of elections for February, but I hope you enjoy the ones that I've selected, that I've been able to find. Really enjoy giving these to you all. It's a lot of fun for me to find these, and also it's even more fun to engage with these rituals with you all. This is something that honestly it makes my heart sing. So, and one other thing for this election, again, semi-permanent talismans would be really good, as well as maybe just doing a ritual, a one-off thing, creating a paper talisman. So hope you enjoy that. Now go get to making some magic, okay? Enjoy yourself, pigs.